Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Immigration Lawyers Podcast, episode 118. I had a wonderful discussion. It's an interview episode with Vanessa Frank. She's a wonderful advocate for immigration, for immigrants, and really immigration attorneys too, with the work that she's doing. So it's a great interview. I just want to note that the first 10 or 15 minutes of it, the audio quality isn't 100%, but it gets better, and I switch it up. So definitely listen to it. She's a great resource out there for all of us. Now, before moving on, I want to let you know that the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox, this is for members, has the daily stuff I do, the daily tips, that the mastermind call that I publish there. But also I have a book review out for members. That's from the founder of Lululemon, the clothing chain. He has a great book out, and I did a report on just important stuff that I picked out in his book, and I have it there for y'all to listen to. Also, I started a thing called the L1A Corner, which is really L1A and EB1C, intercompany transfer and multinational manager cases, reviewing the AEO decisions for that period of time. And I'm going to do this regularly, and it really breaks down my thoughts on the decisions, what issues went wrong, what were good, what stuff was incorrect at USCIS or AEO. So that's really cool to listen to. And you could also request CLE credit just emailing me. For members. It's discounted. For non-members, you can access it too. There's a little bit higher price for that. But the CLE credit is based on California and states that reciprocated, and it's self-study type of CLE credits. Just email me and you can get more information on that. Just email me, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. And finally, I want to again thank everyone who's been listening. Almost every day now, I'm getting emails from attorneys that listen and who just are thankful and appreciative of the information I'm putting out and the support. And I'm thankful and appreciative, humbled by your responses. And I'm so glad to have this national network. And I'm doing my best to talk with all of you. As you know, I try to just set up times to talk with everybody, because I think this close community relationship is the most important thing we could do. And I'm going to do my best to have better technology that connects us all so we can share information, share relationships, and really support ourselves, our practices, our families, and our clients all together. So that stuff's up and coming. Just, bit by bit, I'm trying to move this all forward. But it's amazing that hundreds and hundreds of immigration lawyers listen to this program, and all of them are so cool. They're all around the world. And it's amazing. I wasn't expecting it to get this big. This isn't a broadcast. I'm not trying to get millions of people. I always intended to get a small audience. But when you go hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of immigration lawyers, not a general public, just the immigration lawyers that contact me, it's an amazing feeling, an amazing process. And I'm going to do my best to support all you and just put as much information I can and guidance and help and anything I can to add to the mix. So with that, let's get it started. Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted, and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. We're doing a really fun episode with Vanessa Frank, a great immigration attorney practicing in Ventura, California. Is that right?
That's right.
And she does a lot of good work. She just had a great asylum conference. And so I thought it'd be good to get the word about her work and her ideas. And so we'll just jump into it. Thanks for coming on, Vanessa.
No, thanks so much, John, for having me. I'm actually going to turn around here because I want to show off my staff. Last week we were at the March for DACA in downtown LA.
Oh, wonderful.
I'm realizing that we still have our signs.
Oh, that's perfect.
I keep asking my staff to clean up the office, but they keep wanting to do work for the clients. They never get around to cleaning the office.
What was the atmosphere there? I heard on the radio of the march, we were interviewing people, but it was pretty busy, no?
It was great. We were just there in the morning. We made a whole day out of it. We're in Ventura, which is 60 miles north of Los Angeles. And that is our closest immigration court, is in downtown LA. So I actually had a hearing that morning. I'm sorry, my hearing was in the afternoon, which means I have to leave the office in the morning. And I thought, if I left like an hour earlier, we could also go to the march. So, and then it just became a thing. So then we had a carload of staff, And so it was like a little day for the staff to march for DACA and then go watch the boss do a master calendar hearing. So it was really fun. So we were only there at the march at the very beginning. It wasn't really a march when we were there. It was just a rally, just like bus after bus after bus from high schools just kept unloading. You'd be there, and then all of a sudden, like whoosh, another 40 students would get off bus, and then whoosh, another 40. So it was really exciting to see so many high school students, college students from local universities and colleges were there, all at the, what do they call them? The Molecule Man in LA. So at the Roybal Federal Building. There's a Roybal Federal Building, and then there's the Federal Building for anybody that practices immigration law.
Yeah.
So we're at the back door of 300 Los Angeles Street. So it was fun. And then and then we had to peel off and go back to court. And apparently they ended up walking as they intended, walking to MacArthur Park.
I walk by that statue every time I leave USCIS in downtown. I didn't know it had a name, but it's good to know.
Yeah, the Molecule Man, which, when you see it, it's like, it looks like Swiss cheese.
You know, it's interesting, like the USCIS building is here, and then next door is the federal building for bankruptcy and federal court cases.
Yeah.
There's so much more money there. It's so much nicer compared to like the immigration court on whatever street, that 606 Olive.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I was an intern at the bankruptcy court there, and it's just like this nice looking building, nice seats and elevators, and like everything else is dilapidated for immigration related kind of stuff. It's interesting.
Oh yeah, the immigration court is just, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's just horrible. And I don't know why they won't let the judges, it must clearly be a rule that they won't let the judges personalize. Seemed like there were a couple of judges back in the day that would even like hang the flag of the countries that they were from or something, like some kind of like personal touch on the immigration court. But I don't know if they made some sort of rule, because in the last 10 or so years, I haven't seen anything. I mean, every courtroom looks exactly the same, and it's just sucks the soul out of you.
Talk about their pressure on the judges. Their Justice Department is trying to de-unionize the judges union. So
I saw that. Because I mean, Ashley Tabador kicked up such a fuss.
Yeah,
they probably were like, ixnay on the union, yay.
Just be too effective. But
go get them, judges.
The anti-immigration rhetoric, though, is like it's geared at the employees as well. They're doing to USCIS, EOIR employees. Internally, the DOS, Department of State, I mean, we see what the hearings are having. The DOS don't like it at all, doesn't like it at all either. So they're burning it on both ends. It's kind of an interesting way to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. They don't make a lot of friends.
No, I don't know how effective it'll be in the long run. In some instances, it's super effective what they're doing to make life hell, but they're just destroying all the mechanisms. So, for example, they're trying to kick out a lot of people, but they're overburdening the courts, so they can't kick out a lot of people. They're doing process errors because they're rushing things so bad, and they're stopping people from reporting. So they're shooting themselves in the own foot by trying to push things too fast and not thinking it through.
We're getting people now who are coming to my office because they've been released, they don't really understand what's going on with their case. They don't understand the procedures. They were detained someplace very cold at the border someplace, and then they were told to show up at an ICE office somewhere, and then they were told to get a lawyer. And so now they're in my office, and they have an appointment with ICE in a couple of days, and they don't understand what's going on in their case. And my first question is, oh, you're at the border. Did you claim asylum? And they're like, yeah, asylum. And I say, okay, so did you do your credible fear interview? You know, what did you tell them was your fear of return? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, like when the officer asked you what what your fear was of return, and they're like, nobody ever asked me that. So they aren't even doing credible fear interviews at the border. And so, and then my friends and colleagues, and we have organizations here in Ventura County that are going down regularly down to the border, working with Al Otro Lado, working through Raices, and visiting people. And they just say that my friends that go to the actual border tell me it's chaos, obviously. And then like even just sitting in my little office in Ventura, I'm like, it's chaos. I mean, it is, people, they've never even thought about what their fear is. And most of my clients that are coming, they do have a fear of return, indeed, but nobody's ever asked them. And I think, well, Like, how are they actually in my office? Like, they're not even detained. And somehow they get through this more stringent border policy, which is supposed to be much more stringent. And so some people are like in the remain in Mexico pile. And then other people, I guess, are just kind of like, yeah, come on in, get a lawyer. And I don't see a pattern to which people are being offered that opportunity and which are not. It's, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's all very irregular.
So we jumped ahead a lot. Let's go into your background, Vanessa. Where are you from originally?
I'm born and raised in LA.
Local LA or?
LA.
Oh, one of the few.
I had a city councilman. I was in marvelous Marvin Browdy's district as a kid. He was my city councilman.
And how did you find your way to practicing immigration law from there? From being born?
Let's see. So even in high school in the late 80s and early 90s, when I was in high school, I was involved with student organizing, and there was a great movement in the late 80s of organizing throughout LA, students from all kinds of schools, all kinds of neighborhoods. We were organizing and marching against apartheid and divestment campaigns and that sort of thing. When I went to, so that's where I got started, like marching and being a youth leader and student leader. And then when I went to college, it must have been the fall of my sophomore year of college. Yeah, it was the fall of sophomore year of college. Was 1994, and that was the infamous Prop 187 campaign and Pete Wilson's run for re-election as governor. He was trying to, or he effectively did use Prop 187 to ride to re-election in the governor's office. So that worked for him, that politic of blaming immigrants for everything and being in that real hard line, like no school for undocumented students. Police officers are going to ask people for their papers. Nurses and doctors at hospitals are going to ask people for their papers before they'll treat them, all but the most emergent, urgent things. And that passed. But when I was in college, my campus overwhelmingly voted against Prop 187. We did a lot of organizing in the middle of the night to stop 187. That was
I was pretty young, so I wasn't familiar with 187, but I think a month ago or so was the anniversary, and I was listening to NPR. They were going through it, and it was harsh. Yeah. No medical help, no school. I mean, I was all unconstitutional. You can't do any of that. The Supreme Court's already, which is interesting that they even put a referendum like that when it was, from the beginning, it was unconstitutional. I'm not sure when the case law on going to hospitals came about for Supreme Court, but it was on its face unconstitutional, essentially. But the California game, it was a majority approved it. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it passed. And I hadn't realized, because I was so young, and I'd grown up with the Reagan Bush years, and like I didn't really, you don't know what you don't know. That was the last time the Republicans had any sort of chance at any kind of real power. That did not work. And that is our hope and dream, is that it goes national. As California goes, so goes the nation. And boy, that Pete Wilson, that was brilliant. He was so nasty. The campaign was very nasty, very mean-spirited and nasty and hateful. And yes, he did win, and so did 187. 187 was immediately, there were injunctions, and it was terrible timing for the opponents of immigration law, because it was in 1994. If you do the math, 1994 was just exactly 5 years after everybody got their green card to the amnesty. So it just hit at exactly that moment where people are like, whoa, maybe I better get my citizenship and start voting. And you best believe they sure did. and hopefully they've been voting ever since, and we've been seeing, and we're doing in the county, helping to the citizenship and voter registration and vote efforts. And people, they are excited, they are ready. They know that the primary is on March 3rd. They're looking forward to voting in the presidential in November. And people are fired up, because when you are as nasty as these people are, it motivates folks.
An interesting thing about the NPR interview was that one of the people interviewing was I think a article writer for the LA Times, and he said that his father was Cuban, and after he saw how hateful it was, he stopped identifying himself as Cuban, but as Latino, as Latin or Latino. And so the pushback from that move, the pushback was really harsh. So it's just so, I always think about what Trump's doing, whether they believe in it or not, or they think this is the route to get what they want. The way they're going about it is so negative that there's going to be a wave of pushback that's probably going to overdo it on the other end. Who knows? It's going to stuff that we don't want is going to happen. So that's why when you slam the pendulum so far to one direction, inevitably it's going to crash in the other direction. So it's just much wiser ways to go about this stuff, to deal with it, than this just like two-dimensional, hateful kind of stuff. So that's unfortunate. But all right, so 187, and then Ira passed a couple years after that, so that was a nightmare. That's double whammy. And then, okay, so you went to Stanford Law School, is that correct?
Oh, so so 1994, I was an undergraduate at Stanford with this Prop 187, and I think at that point I felt like immigration law, or having been part of that campaign against Prop 187, I discovered that somehow immigration law and the treatment and the incorporation and assimilation and addressing and all the issues around immigrants and new folks to this country and migrants and all those, somehow that field grabbed my attention as like, this is a place where I could make an impact, as opposed to, advocating on behalf of folks in the healthcare system or housing or labor, although I do still have a soft spot in my heart for economic issues, sort of economic development and access to banking and that kind of thing. There is a piece of me that's always sort of interested in that stuff. But overall, one way or another, it always my work always came back to advocacy on behalf of immigrant rights and immigrant families, and kind of low wage, and you sort of say like immigrants who come to the United States to work and make a better life for their families. So then I just did that. And then when I went back to law school years after college, I went back for law school, and again, because of language and experience or whatever, I got drawn into the immigration law clinic, and this Byzantine, bizarre area of law, somehow, like, I don't know, it just sort of makes sense to me. I'm not saying I agree with our current immigration laws, but I'm able to like see why, when I talk to people who don't understand immigration, they're like, well, wait, I don't understand how come you can petition for your son, but only if he's not married? And I'm like, well, clearly, I get it. Like, the racism of our U.S. immigration law kind of like makes sense to me. Like, yes, that's how the United States would see it, right? Like, of course, that's how our government would see it, right? Like, that makes sense. Somehow I'm able to just tap into that mentality. And it kind of makes sense to me in a weird way. So I'm able to navigate it. It doesn't throw me off. It pisses me off, but it doesn't throw me off.
This is a side question, not immigration related, but you went to one of the top law schools in the country. How hard was it not to take a high-paying corporate kind of job when you had that opportunity? I'm sure that you could have got one of those jobs. What was going through your head on making that decision?
I did take a high-paying corporate job.
Yeah.
I did. Because I knew, because I went to law school. So I think some people go to law school and they discover these issues. I knew these. This is why I went to law school, was to be a better advocate on behalf of immigrant working families. Like, that's why I went to school in the first place. So, and the question was, how could law be a tool? What was I going to, like, I knew what I was doing. And so it was just a question of acquiring this skill set and then seeing how best I might apply it in service of my mission. And so as I was coming to the end of law school, actually not in the end, in my first year when I was looking for summer jobs, I knew that I was going to most likely not work in the most lucrative, like that was not going to be my career with, $1 million $1 million an hour billing rates. That was not in my future. But I was newly married and I wanted to not have as much debt. So I did apply to work at a well-paying firm so that I would be able to get rid of some debt, and pay it down so that I would be freer more quickly to do the work that I had gone to law school to do. So I did do that. And I chose
a little bit.
What's that?
It'd be hard not to when you have like that opportunity. And then that, and
yeah.
When you graduated, you graduated in early 2000s?
Yeah, 2003. So my first summer was 2001.
How was
it? Was lovely.
How was the tuition rates at that time? Because I graduated 10 years after, or like 9 years after you, or something like that. It was, I don't know, $35,000 a year. How much was it at that time? The Stanford's private too, so.
It's about the same. I was about the same. It's about the same.
Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, the law firm, and it's the firm I worked for was really well respected, does a lot of pro bono. I got involved actually as an associate, not in my summers, but as an associate, I got pulled into a really interesting Alien Tort Claims Act case, which is another kind of spin on immigration, because it was one of these cases where these guys that had been these horrible generals and committed all sorts of atrocities had actually been spotted on the streets in the United States by some of their victims, because the victims came here as refugees, and then these like former generals come and like live life high on the hog. They defraud their country of millions of dollars and they come and live in the United States. So everybody's here, right? And what had actually happened was some of these victims saw these guys on the street and were like, yo, and they, one thing and another, and they ended up hiring our law firm to prosecute these guys using one of the first laws ever on the books of the United States of America, the Alien Tort Claims Act. And we sued the bejesus out of these guys. It was really fun. So that was really interesting. So the question was, when you work at these huge, well-resourced law firms, where they can just quickly get coffee and donuts for any sort of meeting that you want to run, and it's very lovely and comfortable. Is that a space where you can make some change? And I very quickly identified the partners and senior partners at that firm that were using their role and their positions at that firm to make as much change as they could. And I thought, yeah, this is a potential avenue, right? People in these, they can bring the resources that these large law firms can bring to bear on a problem are seemingly limitless. And it's wonderful. But ultimately, I found that in order to be able to bring those resources, they weren't sort of like allocating jillions of dollars to first-year associates, like, oh, sure, Vanessa, why don't you, take a team of 7 lawyers and go do your work? Like, nobody was doing that for me. In order to get to the place where I could have a team of 7 or 8 hotshot associates, I would have to be a senior partner, and that would, that's a really long game.
Yeah.
And I pride myself that I do play chess. I don't play checkers. I play a long game, but that was a really long game. And I thought, I don't want to play quite that long a game. And I want to get to it a little sooner. And so I made the trade-off of moving into direct legal services sooner in my career, and recognizing that I would then be putting myself in a position. I mean, I think if I went and applied to, I flatter myself, if I went and applied to a major law firm, maybe they would consider hiring me or bringing me as a counsel at this point in my career. But at that time, I essentially was like, okay, you're not going to do that path. You're going to have to just make friends with people at large law firms or whatever. Like, that's not going to be my path. My path will be providing more of the direct on the ground work, and and for other people, it's their path to work at these large law firms and do a big pro bono case from time to time.
Yeah.
And that's why different strokes for different folks.
That litigation that AIC was involved in with the border, I think it was with your same firm that you worked, I don't know, at the ALA conference, not last year or the year before. I remember they had a dinner, and I think it was your firm that did some big work on there. It spent like $1 million on that or more probably with lawyers' time and stuff. But yeah, if you want to get those huge kind of cases, you need that backing of these kind of organizations or just a lot of money. It's hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, you know, these super duper cases, you know, when you see like the ACLU is suing somebody, the ACLU is like one lawyer and one paralegal and then 20 lawyers from white shoe law firm, right? 20 junior and senior associates who are doing the work. I mean, yeah, it's the whole legal community, and it requires all of us because the people who are in those large law firms are not in the community. They don't know directly, for the most part. They're not going to necessarily know what cases are the most important cases to bring. They're not going to have the connections to get those clients, right? So it makes sense to have people on the ground who are saying, hey, we're witnessing this pattern. You know, ALA attorney in Ventura is talking to ALA attorney in, you know, Missoula, Montana is talking to ALA attorney in, you know, Stewart, you know, at Stewart Detention Center. And, you know, and we're like, wow, are you seeing? Yeah, we're all three seeing this. Hey, I've got a buddy over at White Shoe Law Firm. We should bring him into this, right? And I think that's how our system is set up. Like that's how it works, for better or for worse, right? Mm-hmm. So we all have a role to play, and it's just a question of, you know, personal choice and how you want to live your life, and you know how many country clubs you want to be a member of. I mean, everybody has their own sort of calculations about where they want to fit into this system.
Where did that lead you to next? So you're at the firm and then you left, and where did you go from there?
I went to CRLA. Yeah, I went directly from one to the other. CRLA Inc., which is California Rural Legal Assistance. So it's one of the, at least I thought growing up, I mean, I still consider it one of the legendary civil rights law firms, legal service organization. California Rural Legal Assistance has been led by Jose Padilla, also an alum of Stanford, of course. And I always just had the greatest respect for that organization. So when I was offered a job there, I mean, that was a dream come true. There's no doubt. I did try to convince them to hire me to open because they didn't have one. I said, you know, you guys could open an LA office and I would be very happy to do that for you. And they said, Vanessa, we're California Rural Legal Assistance. I said, but I want to go home. And they said, well, how about Oxnard? That's pretty close to LA. And I said, okay, fine. So I took the job in their Oxnard office doing representing migrant farm workers, and that was great.
Employment issues, everything, right?
Yeah, that's everything for migrant farm workers: housing, health, you know, access to health care, certainly labor and employment issues, language access issues around the county. In our county, we've got a lot of people who speak pre-Columbian languages from southern Mexico, Mixteco, Triqui, Purépecha, Zapoteco. So that was the work that we were doing at CRLA at that time. And still, I believe CRLA still is doing that work. So it's super exciting, and I loved it. Great folks. And after a couple of years there, though, because, and there's a good reason for it, and I strongly support it, but again, we each make our personal choices and find our own path. CRLA is funded by the Federal Legal Services Corporation, which is money allocated by the federal government, by Congress. And part of Newt Gingrich's contract on America was to limit that funding such that Legal Services Corporation could not provide legal services to undocumented people in the United States. So CRLA Inc., there were 3 restrictions that really kind of hamstring you when you're representing migrant farm workers in California. We weren't allowed, or continue to not be allowed, to represent undocumented people. We're not allowed to do class action, and we are not permitted to seek attorney fees.
Oh, wow.
So when you, When you put all three together and you're doing farm work or justice work, that is a very significant limitation. Yeah. So, and the hardest one for me after years at that point, you know, I had 15 years advocating on behalf of immigrant families. In my time after college, I was working in public schools in the Bay Area, advocating for immigrant families, and always, you know, Vanessa, big mouth. So always like, hey, you know, these are migrants, they have rights, like just because people don't have papers, blah, 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 you know, like always making a fuss about people and ensuring access for people, regardless of their immigration status. And to get to a place where my actual job depended on my saying, oh, gee, sir, you know, wow, John, I'm sorry to hear you haven't been paid lately. Could you please show me your papers so I can determine whether or not I can represent you and whether or not I can offer you advice at this point, right? And to actually have to ask people for their documentation before I could advise, and certainly before I could represent them. And that, just me personally as a human, and I would never fault CRLA. Obviously, it's not CRLA's fault; it's LSC's fault. It's Congress's fault, right? So of course the fault lies with Newt Gingrich, but I just couldn't. After a while, I thought, you know, I want to. I don't. It just felt like a barrier, a wall between me and my clients. And I thought, I don't want to do this wall. I want to be able to look my client in the eye and be like, okay, you're telling me you've been deported 3 times, huh? Okay, this is what we can do. People sort of unable to talk to their lawyer because I would have to ask them for their papers. So at that point, I got into doing immigration law. Inevitably.
You found your way to full-time immigration lawyer.
Full time.
And how's that? Did you just open up your shingles? Like, what did how the phrase goes? Open up shingles or shingles? How did that happen?
Yeah, I actually did work for a small local immigration firm for just about a year, and then I hung out my own shingle.
How difficult was it starting your own shop? Just the idea of being. I mean, you probably had clients already because you were in the community for so long.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Because I didn't physically move. And in fact, wonderful CRLA was my first landlord. And because they happened to own the building where their office is in Oxnard. And so they had they rent out space in that building. And boy, that was the sweetest deal ever. That was a great little office. It was right in downtown. It was right next door to my friends. It was perfect. It had no windows. So it was a little bit limited. But yeah, so I had been in the community, and I remember thinking, you know, if I'd gone to dental school, if I'd become a dentist, I'd be in doo-doo if I wanted to start my own thing. But as a lawyer, I mean, I had a laptop. I had my laptop from law school. I had a Costco membership, so I could buy paper super cheap, or, you know, relatively. And I had a printer. And Bob's your uncle.
Law. That's that, and just knowing what to do. That's all you need for immigration law. You don't necessarily have to have staff either.
I need a computer and an internet connection, and I was good. You know, I was good to go. So I just I went to Vistaprint and printed up cards. And my mom was like, "Sweetheart, next time, how much does it cost to get the cards that don't say free cards available on Vistaprint on the back?" I was like, that's like $12. She's like, do you need some help with the $12? I can give you $12. Spend the $12. So I spent the $12, got a second round of business cards made that didn't say free cards available. And you know, you hand out cards to people and say, I'm a lawyer and I have an office over here, and they would call and I would see them and I would advise them. And and eventually, you know, you build a practice. And so 10 years later, we've got a bunch of clients and we do all kinds of work. And I've got an associate attorney and a staff of 6 beyond my associate.
What kind of cases do you focus on?
Again, immigrant working family for the most part. So everything non-lucrative, like not the investors, not investor visas, not business employment based, not student visas or any of those. I work with folks that want to permanently reside in the United States, right? I think maybe that's the orientation. Maybe that's the way to describe it, right? My clients want to live, work, study, and make their home in the United States. That's their objective. So primarily family-based, but also survivor.
I'm sorry, but do you deal with a lot of H-2A visas because you're in a farm area, or is that like more central California?
No, there are a lot of H's in this area. I don't do them.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, as I say, my client base are people who want to stay here forever.
No, is it like people that are on H's and they have a kid here who eventually is 21 and then they file for adjustment? Does that scenario come up a lot?
Again, not in my office, because I guess those people would hire the same attorney who did their H to do the family adjustment. But then again, that would be pretty surprising. You'd have to have you'd have to do the H for 22 years, right?
Or just come once and overstay. I'm not sure the H-2 requirements if you overstay or not is.
Oh, yeah, they could. You're right. They could have the H and overstay. No, I don't see those folks. That's not my people. My clients often have not come with visas. They might have 245I. Sometimes, we do have some that have entered with visas. And then we do a lot of survivors, so we do asylum work, U's, VAWAs, T's. We do SIJs, special immigrant juvenile status. Mm-hmm. So like all of that field of work.
Have you been seeing changes or differences in adjudication with regards to humanitarian, like T's and U's? Have there been more pushback, RFEs, or noise coming from those?
I hear that from our colleagues, but I haven't seen that so much. We've just seen the delays. And the thing that drives me bonkers with the U is, again, I'm not going to blame CIS for Congress' fault. Congress only made 10,000 available every year. Yeah. Fine. I mean, not fine, but I accept reality.
Yeah.
But what I don't accept is that CIS is like, well, in that case, we can take 7 or 8 years to just look at it. No, man, staff that thing. Let's get these U's reviewed. Let's get adjudications on them. And for folks that get approved, let's get these folks into deferred action. I think that they could get these U's reviewed and adjudicated within a year, get folks into deferred action with a work permit, a C-14 work permit for the 8, 9, or 10 years until an actual U becomes available. That is what, and I think, that and not only the work permit, but the deferred action also brings with it, of course, the protection from removal. And when we have several cases in our office where people are applying for U status, and they were previously, or they are placed into removal proceedings at some point in that journey. And man, if we could just get that deferred action, you'd save people so much agony and money and attorney fees and just confusion and chaos. And if they would just adjudicate the U, of course, because I believe my U cases are strong, they would be approved. And then they would, and then we get out of court. These people, they have no business being in court. These are folks that are eligible and otherwise going to have status. And we could get out of EOIR, get out of their way.
Yeah, I don't do you, so this information might not make sense, but I think I was reading a liaison report where they said USCIS doesn't want to adjudicate it twice. So they if they adjudicate it quickly like this, when the time comes when it's available, they have to adjudicate it again. They don't want to use their staff to do it twice, which is so what? Do what you have to. Does that make sense? But
that's not true. That doesn't hold any water either, because, as I say, the U's are so backlogged because of that 10,000 cap. Mm-hmm. At this point, people who applied 4 years ago or so are getting their deferred action, but they're not going to get U for another 3 or 4 years after that. Mm-hmm. So they are granting the deferred action years in advance. So I don't know what the difference is between, like, we don't want our staff to have to review it twice. We'll allow them to review it twice in a 4-year period, but we don't want them to review it twice in a 10. Like, that's garbage. That's garbage. And I don't really know what the secondary adjudication, I guess if there's a criminal thing, but I think what they could do, what they had been doing was reviewing them and granting approval. And we used to, like in 2009, 2010, we would get the approval, not 2009, there were still visas available. I mean, there were U's available, but maybe like 2011, 12, when there was a little bit of a backlog, just a little bit, you know, maybe a year, they would review them and approve them. And, you know, your U has been approved. There just isn't a U for you, so we're going to put you in deferred action. And presumably, when there was an actual U available to that person, maybe they would run the biometrics again and just make sure they hadn't, like, gone out and, like, robbed a bunch of banks.
Yeah.
And then if they did that, you know, barring anything like that, then they could do it. But I don't think they do a full, why would you review the whole U again? Like, you can review the case and adjudicate it on the merits and then do a quick, you know, run the biometrics, run the background, make sure there wasn't a removal or some sort of removal situation or some sort of criminal event that would bar them, and then grant them the U. You're going to review them anyway in 3 years when they apply for, or 3 or 4 years if they apply to renew the U, to extend the U, or to apply for a green card. You're going to get another bite at the apple at these people. So it doesn't, no.
So one thing interesting that you do is, and you just had this, you had an asylum conference in Ventura a couple of weeks back, maybe a month ago. What was that's the first one you did, or have you been doing a lot of these?
No, God, no, just one. Thanks for asking. We did one. We've done one. It is the one asylum. It's not the annual asylum conference, but we were super lucky in that retired Judge Bruce Einhorn said that he could come and speak, and we got very quickly also Judy Wood, because her movie is her brand new movie, St. Judy. And so she was able to come on the same day. And then Judy London of Public Counsel could come. And then very quickly we got Mariana Marroquin of the Trans Wellness Center of the LGBT Center in LA. And then like Meredith Brown and Claribel Madueña and all these wonderful folks. Suddenly we're like, yeah, I can be there. And so it was like, well, let's do a show. So we put it together because the people on the Central Coast in Ventura, Santa Barbara County, I don't know if a few people from San Luis Obispo may have come down. On our Central Coast, there are so many people. The term that I always used in college was civil society groups, right? These are like nonprofit, activists, you know, C3s, 501c4 kind of organization, right? These folks are so energized and so committed and so concerned about the rights of migrants, farm workers, low-wage workers, in-home healthcare providers, you know, the treatment of migrants as a sort of canary in the coal mine of how the United States is on the scale of justice right now. Mm-hmm. So there's so many people interested in this stuff. There are so few lawyers. There are no lawyers in town. There are only civil society groups, and they want to help. And so we thought, well, let's put together a conference that will draw the few immigration lawyers that are in town, will boost our spirit to just have a thing where we can get together and we don't have to fly to an AILA conference somewhere. It's just right here in our own backyard. It would also draw non-immigration lawyers who don't do immigration law, who may want to do pro bono asylum cases, and train them and get them hyped up. And then we'll also do it as a goodie to the civil society folks, so they can meet one another, meet the attorneys, meet the non-immigration attorneys who are interested, and everybody can kind of be together in the same spot to inspire one another, build connections, and see what might result. So that was actually 2 weeks ago. It was 2 weeks ago, the conference, 2 weeks ago on Saturday. And so we are still actually digging out and we're going to work on, not so much doing another conference, but working on that follow-up so that folks that did come and got interested know where to go next. Oh, you said you were interested in providing rides. So like civil society folks, as I said, the immigration court is 60 miles away. And for our local folks, like our clients who don't have ready access to cars, and even if they have access to cars, they don't have access to gas money, frankly. Yeah. So then they rely on somebody to give them a ride. And anyway, I won't, it's not a good system.
So little stuff that are not little. I mean, literally taking a whole day off work to go somewhere for a regular person, it's like, that's a livelihood for the day. You need to pay for the trip. These are a big deal that you really got to think about. It's not just lawyer fees and stuff too. There's a lot going on there. Yeah,
there's childcare. There's all this stuff. And, as the attorney, I go down there all the time. I've got my thing. I know, I got Waze on my phone, but folks that are not used to it and they get lost. So it's a whole day. So there are people in our neighborhood, retirees, people who have funny work schedules, and they're like, I'll drive them to LA. I won't charge anything. I've been wanting to go down there anyway. Ooh. And I'm like, really? You'll just drive somebody round trip to Los Angeles? They're like, yeah, why not? I say, yeah, why not? Great, do that. So connecting plugging those kind of people in, like people that are like, yeah, I can buy a box of groceries for somebody who recently got out of detention. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. Okay, let's do that. So there's so much of that energy around, and plugging it in so that people really do get that immediate sense of like, hey, I see something wrong. I can help, and I know exactly where to go to provide that help. And just kind of closing those gaps to make it really, really smooth, that step from seeing something on the news, being horrified, and then immediately being able to do something productive and helpful for actual human beings. It's so gratifying to be able to do that. So I think there were, as I say, a lot of connections were made at the asylum conference. People are super excited, and we're going to continue to do things like that, if not a whole conference with a judge, which is very intimidating. But we do our monthly, to that point, we do our monthly Swap Meet Justice, where we bring, again, people who see things in the news, really wish they could help. They don't have the language. They aren't trained immigration attorneys. They aren't even trained lawyers. What can I do? But they do speak English, and they aren't afraid to fill out a form. And so we bring them to the swap meet once a month, and we do DACA renewals and citizenship applications right there on the spot. And for our listeners, I know people are like, what? You screen? Yes, we screen, and we do the most straightforward cases. Anybody that has any kind of criminal thing, we refer them then to our BIA accredited agencies or lawyers. But if they have just a really straightforward DACA application, I mean, yeah, step right up. We'll do it right here. We've got a photocopy machine set up there. We bring in coffee and donuts. It's a scene. It's really fun.
You get people, and I've created these kind of pro bono stuff a couple times in my career, and like I didn't know how to get the word out. Barely people would come. How did you get the word out for people to know you're there? Is it just you've been there consistently for a period of time that they got used to it, or how do you get people to even show up?
Yeah, you got it. You totally got it, John. You are a pro. Yeah, that's it, right? You just have to go. Like the first time you go, like 2 people are there. And then you go the next month, they're like, wait, so you're here every month? Yes, we're here every month. The last Sunday of the month. Oh, okay. And then 6 people show up, and they're like, you're here every month? Yes, every month. Last Sunday of the month, every month. Oh, okay. 12 people show up. 40 people show up, right? Boop, 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 boop. And, we've got signs and banners, and we have flyers, and we hand them out around,
You're getting that kind of numbers, like 40 people showing up?
Oh, yeah, no. The last one, I think we served like 60 families.
Wow.
We served, when I say we served, that means I served, like we screened 60 families. We did not do 60 citizenship applications. We told some people, no, fool, like you need to not do anything. Do not, don't leave the country, don't renew, right? Everything from that to yeah, you know, what have you been waiting for? You got a clean criminal record. You've been a resident for 35 years. Let's do this. So just the gamut, right? But we do, I think serving, as I say, the numbers served is really important because people are so nervous, and especially now, right? Mm-hmm. There's so much fear. And so I think being able to provide people with those opportunities to like, well, I mean, I don't know a lawyer. Like, I don't even know where I would find a lawyer. You find them at the swap meet. That's where you find everything. You can buy tires, you can buy boots, you can buy groceries, you can find a lawyer. I mean, it's the swap meet, man. Like, everything's there. So that's what we're trying to promote. Like, you can do, you know, we're there for you.
That's a lot of listeners want to do this stuff. That's an easy way to do it. Just go find some place where everyone's at constantly in the type of community you're looking for. But I think the main thing is longevity. Just do it consistently for extended period of time, because it takes a while to get that wheel rolling. If people know you're there and not forget or come at the wrong day or something like that.
You're so right. Yeah. Have you done these? You've done these things where you have to go?
Like when I first started, I went to about 20 different churches asking if we use their spot. And at the 20th one, right here in Westwood and Santa Monica Boulevard, we found one. They're really nice. They gave us some room. I think every 2 weeks we would do it on a Tuesday night, and did it about a year. No one came. I think it was because with the traffic being so nasty on Westwood and Santa Monica, I didn't on a Tuesday. I didn't want to bother. But we did there'd be at least 2 or 3 people that would come. But over time, it was like we were here 7 to 9, and no one would come. A lot of times it would just repeats, we'd come and hang out almost. So my partner was doing, he still has it. I think it's called Los Angeles Immigration Clinic or something like that. Parviz Malakouti, he's still doing it, but I'm like, I can't do the same. I'm going to do videos where I teach people stuff online. So hopefully I can help them that way. But to come out there and sit down is too much for me. But I realized you got to market a lot, have a good time, have a good location, and then just keep doing it so people know you're there.
You're exactly right. It is. It's just like, exactly. And that's what we've been doing. And we just like, it's been over a year now. And I think people are starting to like, oh, swap meet justice. And even like the accredited reps now, the BIA, because we rely in this area, we don't have enough lawyers. So we use the DOJ accredited reps. And so they are now referring people. And of course, my clients, I mean, the lowest cut of all, right? My wonderful clients are like now savvy to the fact that they can pay me for a consult, or you can just show up at the swap meet and get so these people see the love. So they come and they find me, but then they bring their sister, they bring their cousin, or they bring their friend who was too nervous to make an appointment and come to the lawyer's office, and it's scary and intimidating or whatever the barriers might be. But when your friend's like, man, why don't we go get a burrito at the swap meet and I'll introduce you to my lawyer? They do. And there is some business development. Some of those have actually come in and become paying clients, but it's really not about that. It's really about seeing people are like, oh my gosh, you're like, wow. And if they don't pay me, they will sometimes need the DOJ accredited. Maybe they're eligible for a waiver, and we are not doing no waivers at the swap meet.
Yeah.
But the DOJ accredited can do a straightforward waiver application as well. And so it's amazing. And then you see people like, right? Every immigration, I think, at least every immigration lawyer that does family stuff like us, like that weight, you just see people like actually their body language right in front of you, the weight releases and they stand up straighter and they're like, you don't know how worried I've been about this. I'm like, man, don't worry. You're eligible for a waiver. It'll take a little time, but it'll be fine. They're like, wow.
Yeah, the location is
good
because they get intimidated, call a lawyer, come to their office. And I get so many people constantly where like 10 years, they're like, they can't sleep at night. And they come to me and it's like, oh, you're 245. Yeah. Get your green card, come like in a year. And they're like, that's it. I'm like, that's it. And it's like they built it up into this horrible like kind of thing where it's fixable. And it's not always the case, obviously, but it's enough of the time where it's kind of like they feel bad. These people were probably like, it's like a cancer on them. It's just growing constantly when it could have been released so easily.
Right.
Yeah,
of course, the hypo lawyer mind is like, yeah, but then that's why people fall into the hands of notaries, right? Because they have these like, oh man, your case is so easy. No worries. Oh, you've been, expedited removed 3 times. That's okay. You've got 245I. Like, oh. So I'm always, right. And there's always another side to that. But there are so many people. It's so funny how the people with the most complicated cases think their case is so easy. And the people with the so straightforward case, you're like, man, you could have been a citizen 10 years ago. And they're like, no, but I had 3 parking tickets. I was afraid I'd get deported. You're like, no,
I got a call
you're
this
fine.
of a guy who got married to a DACA holder who got DACA when she was straight 18, and the wife, who was a foreign national, entered with a visa. So she was entered visa, then immediately got DACA at 18, and he marries a guy, is U.S. citizen. Like 2 or 3 years go by, and then they finally got the nerve to call a lawyer. They called me. I'm like, dude, you should have done this years ago. Like, here, you had backups. Like, you're good.
This is like, I love these cases. Yeah. So always, that's really fun, right? Isn't that fun to like, we can solve this right here. Like,
yeah.
Let's go. We can do this right now.
Now, what's going on with asylum? Because we're making it horrible in a sense that they made it to, if you leave one box empty and don't write NA or not applicable or none or something like that, they're going to return the case. And then we got that new memo that came out that said they won't give work authorization for many types of cases.
Right.
I don't know I haven't read that completely. I don't know if you know, but they said if you entered illegally or without inspection, you can't get a work permit. Does that include people who are renewing it who previously had work permits?
I don't know. I don't think they know. I don't know. I
got to read it, but I was like, that's so nasty that they're doing that. It's just really coming at me.
It's just amazing. Yeah, there's so many regs that are coming out and keeping it all square. I mean, our community up here was freaking out, and still our civil society groups and our community-based organizations are tonight. I have a friend who's going tonight and doing tomorrow night. She's going to go and spend her day talking to people about public charge, right? Because people got so freaked out, and they all start disenrolling from all these. They disenroll their citizen kids from food stamps or from whatever support. I mean, we had people, that were concerned about doing after-school programs. They were pulling their kids out of the Boys and Girls Club, like all kinds of things. Yeah. and so even when things don't even come into effect, people are so scared, and it's so hard to identify what's true and what's not true, and what you should be doing. So all of these things, to keep track of them. And of course, that's the intention, of course. That is precisely the intention. The intention is to be confusing and to inspire fear.
I mean, the first draft of the public charge rule they just put out there and had all this nonsense in it, and that caused all sorts of problems too.
Right. Right. I mean, do you think, it's again, this is not my client base, so I don't know intimately this, but it's the same with the Muslim ban, right? The Muslim ban achieved its mission. The first one achieved its mission. Terrify, scare, and put people on edge. If they are from these countries, if they are Muslim, you should be nervous, right?
It even
so whatever,
it can be challenged. Holders, and they thought they were not allowed to apply for a green card or renew their green card, or they can't travel outside the U.S. People call me asking this kind of stuff all the time.
Right? Yeah, I mean, to this day, I imagine.
Yeah, it's like a lot of my phone calls are just like, no, the travel ban is very specific. It's for this, but I mean, when the travel ban was so badly written, I had Iranian people call me. They're being not allowed in. From Mexico, like they went to Tijuana for vacation, coming back, and then they're lawful permanent residents. They wouldn't let them in for 24 hours, 48 hours, or holding on to them.
Oh my God, John. Oh, it's just, I mean, so all of those things, doing the work out in the community and getting accurate information to people, that's to me, that's very difficult. Very difficult work to stay on top of that. So
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of good
Yeah.
that not to be too sad about it. I mean, it's a really trying time to be an immigration attorney, but at the same time, you really you do the work you do. It's that much more valuable when you do it in these kind of times. And eventually, people will calm down and realize like this is not what they should be put their focus on, all their fears on,
Well,
and get
I
out of
mean,
it.
one hopes, but I mean, I was a lawyer. I was an immigration lawyer during the Obama administration too. I mean, and we can talk about Obama and deporter in chief, and
Yeah.
that's true. But even into year 7 of Obama, even after DACA, trying to get people to like, okay, calm down. We can go in, we can admin close your case. We can, and now like we're not able to do this as well, but I've had several families that we could go in, they had outstanding orders of removal, we would go in, we'd reopen, motion to reopen, terminate the case and apply for a green card. We did this multiple times.
Yeah.
And, but people were like, no, that's ICE. And again, just the timing of my own life, I'd grown up with fear of immigration, La Migra, and this sort of thing, in Los Angeles. But by the time I became an adult and a lawyer, it sort of coincided with the Obama administration in a way that I thought, oh, all those things that you learn as a kid to be afraid of and stuff, it's so silly, right? Because you could just go in and reopen and terminate, right? And then you get into this administration, you're like, no, fool, that stuff was real. And it's not, it wasn't always like that. But during the Obama administration, there were opportunities. There were some folks, there were some doors opened. But to get that word out to people of like, hey, it's okay. I know we had to like go into hiding and it was a really scary time there for a long time, but now there's some opportunities for you, and getting folks to really, slowly kind of feel like, okay, I'm safe coming out of the shadows. And then to have this guy like, no, you better run. It's really distressing. It's really harmful, I think, for people's mental, emotional well-being to kind of like, well, which is it? Because the immigration lawyers, like one day they're telling me I'm safe, and then the next one they're like, run and hide,
The mental health issue of it is really a big deal too. I think and there's communities that are super stressed out. I try to talk about it as much as possible, putting aside the law stuff. You have a community that's here, they have family, children are U.S. citizens, spouse is a U.S. citizen, and they're worried for their lives. What's that going to do to their U.S. citizen child, the depression? And they're going to grow up angry with the society that they're in. And what's that going to look like for the future of America? Is this the seeds you want to sow? Regardless of what your beliefs are about people coming here or not, they're here, they have families here, they're part of the community. That's not, it creates civil strife like that. Let's think about a way to fix it up. That's one of the things that I think that really needs to get talked about. It's the mental health issue that these people and their families have to deal with.
Yeah, I think it's been proven over and over again that when you mistreat people, they don't grow up feeling a great sense of loyalty and duty. And, in my most patriotic moments, I think, as a patriotic citizen of this country, it is in my best interest to have everybody who lives here also feel patriotically loyal to this country. That is what is in my best, if I just take a moment, if I'm purely selfish, I'm purely self-interested, we want people to feel like, hey, this is the best country in the world, and I'm so glad to be here, and I want to do what I can to make it better. I'm raising a child here. I hope people feel that way about the country my child is growing into. So it doesn't make sense on any level. It's just thoughtless.
Yeah.
I think on every single level, it's unnecessarily cruel. And why would you be cruel to people? It doesn't make economic sense. We're just leaving trillions of dollars on the table in terms of economic development and growth. It's not morally correct. And ultimately it's not in our own self-interest to create hatred and rancor. So I just, I can't explain why people feel the way that they do.
But it seems like it's throughout societies all over the world. It's kind of like something that people do. It's like this immigrant. It's the outside, the tribal kind of mentality that we really need to get out of. But I guess that's so I have a whole podcast about that.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We discussed a lot of different topics. I'd love to have you on, but one thing I really wanted to put out there was the conference that you did, and for people to do similar stuff across the country. There's a lot of need for that kind of stuff. And when I found out you're in Ventura, so close, I went to school when I was in Thousand Oaks. I lived there, so I'm like I had a kinship. I'm like, oh, okay, your neighbors or this going on. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about what you're doing, how could they do that?
They can go to our office website, vanessafranklaw.com, VANESSAFRANK, law. And I really do appreciate it, John. I just think it is really important, especially right now, so many people. I think as lawyers, it's really easy. We've got a lot of clients, we've got staff. My Wi-Fi died in the middle of planning for the asylum conference. We had no Wi-Fi for 10 days.
Oh, man.
It was a difficult time. And, so it's like you have all these other issues going on. But I think I would ask us, and it's one more burden for immigration lawyers to carry, but I really do think it is on us to involve the community, the non-lawyers, the people of good faith, the people of goodwill. There are so many people that want to do good, that want to help out, that want to get involved, that want to get informed. And put those people to work, baby. I mean, that's get those people working. They can make photocopies, they can make phone calls, they can organize a meeting, they can bring the coffee and donuts, they can make they can do a lot. And we have interns of every age. We've got kids, we've got 10th graders up through retirees volunteering with our law office in one capacity or another, because they want to, and they love it, and they bring new energy, and they bring new ideas. And then the clients see, oh, it's not just this boring lawyer in her little suit talking to me. I got to meet this nice little high school student who's helping me make photocopies of my documents. It makes it more fun and more engaging, and we get more ideas. And the more people know about immigration law, as opposed to just hearing it on the radio or seeing a news item, they're actually in the office, or they're at the swap meet, or they're at the conference, and they actually see the stories. They're better advocates.
Yeah.
And then when they go to their Thanksgiving dinner, they're and their family starts saying some things. They're like, no, because I've been volunteering at this office, or I've been volunteering at the swap meet. Let me tell you the story about the family. I did help a guy that had a criminal record. He had a warrant for his arrest because he failed to pay a traffic ticket. And then he was concerned he was going to get deported. And I think a lot of times family members are like, oh, well, but we're talking about real criminals. And my people can be like, no, these are the people that are concerned about deportation. And they can really ground those little family dinners better. And then we just have more advocates. And so I think it really is on us. I apologize for putting another task on our to-do list, but I think it is on us to get the word out and to do stuff, like this podcast, where people can be a fly on the wall and listen to what immigration lawyers are worried about and talking about. And it's really useful. It's all good.
Well, thank you so much. I'll definitely be in touch. It was a pleasure talking with you again.
Good to talk to you too, John. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.